everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for a lovely evening of Greek science fiction in translation. Tonight, it's all about novellas, and we're going to be discussing tales from future Greece. So first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. I am Francesca Barbini, and I am the owner of Luna Press Publishing, based in Scotland. And now my colleagues are going to introduce themselves.
Yes, I'm Francesco Verso. I'm a science fiction writer and editor from Italy, from Rome. And I've been, gathering some forces to get this project done. And I'm very happy to be here.
Hi from me too. My name is Stamatis Stamatopoulos. I'm supposedly a Greek science fiction writer. I'm not very dedicated in writing, but in any case, I try occasionally. Two of my stories, one that I co-authored and one of that I wrote by myself, are in the book that Francesco and Francesca are going to publish. I write science fiction about 20 years now, and I live in the UK. I don't live in Greece at the moment. I live in the UK and work as a carpenter. And that's me.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Victor Pseftakis. I am a speculative writer, speculative fiction writer and a translator. Together with Dimitra Nikolaidou, we run Tales of the Weird, which is a creative writing teaching company and editing company, translating company and stuff. And I'm really happy I got to be involved in this Nova Hellas project. Initially by Aleph.
Some problems.
Okay, Dimitra.
Dimitra Nikolaidou, along with Victor Pseftakis, we run Tales of the Weird indeed, and we work with Aleph on novel. I'm a speculative fiction.
You're back.
I'm also a researcher. I researched at the Aristotelic University of Thessaloniki. I researched the relationship between role-playing games and speculative fiction. We write, we do translations, we work on speculative fiction in general, and we are always trying to find some free time to read some more speculative fiction, and especially happy to see work from other countries than the usual ones we've been reading fiction from. Really happy to come in contact with other branches, and we're really happy to see our own work, Greek work, get acknowledged abroad.
Thank you very much. So I am exceedingly proud of this project. It is a project that was born in Greece, and Francesco will tell us a little bit more about it, and made its way to Rome, to Francesco's Future Fiction Press. And then Francesco and I talked about the things that we love to do when it comes to pushing the stories and the culture to the world, perhaps not the one that we grew up with. And the idea, the possibility of translating into different languages is something that has really always it's been a passion of ours. After all, none of us here was born an English speaker, but we certainly live in an English-speaking world. But we have grown up constantly, with this duality in us, our own culture on one side and what we see on the other. And we're also keen to really bring that diversity to as many places as possible, So we were able, from Rome, then to come to Scotland to create a project that started in Greek, went through Italian and is now in English. So it is such a joy for us to do. So Francesco and I are really proud editor of this fantastic collection. So I'm going to pass on to Francesco so he can tell us a little bit more about how the project came to be.
Yes. Thank you, Francesca. You're indeed right in many senses. The opportunity of this book, of this anthology, came, actually, maybe 2 years ago. I remember that Antonia Katsovou, if I pronounce her name correctly, apologies, my Greek is non-consistent. She approached me and she sent me this PDF with some stories translated in English from Greek, and it was Athens 2525. And I started to, she said, "Oh, you have a big network of connections. Can you do something with this?" And I thought, okay, I will read it. Of course, this is interesting because my passion for the science fiction in translation has brought me to translate at the moment from 10 languages and 25 countries. And Greece is my beloved country. Is a place where we all owe so much of our knowledge, of our history, of our culture, of our art, of our literature, of our philosophy. I don't know where to stop. Greece is the cradle of the Western civilization. So when I received these stories, I was so surprised to find that the science fiction was so up to date, was so into the moment that we live. And many times when I read science fiction, even from the first countries, they feel so old style, so many times they feel like nostalgic about the golden age, But here there were a selection of stories that were really digging into the most relevant themes and problems and issues and questions of our time. So when I started to read about submarine tourism of submerged cities in Greece, when I started to read about the problem of the politics of the future Europe, when I started to read about migrations and stuff like that, I said, this is really interesting. This is really valuable stuff. So I answered to Antonia saying, well, I cannot guarantee about any other publication at the moment, but what I can tell you is that I am interested in doing an Italian edition. And then I started to talk more with Francesca. We met in strange places like the City Hall in Helsinki for the Worldcon. We met in some other strange places. We did some other place in Dublin. But in a way, we found a kind of same feeling about stories coming from not the usual places, not the usual names, and not the usual languages. And so I thought maybe Francesca is the right person. Well, not maybe, definitely, she is the right person to do something like that. Also because she's crazy enough to publish me in English. So I said, let's try. If she published in Italian, she might publish Greek as well. Mia fazza, mia razza. They say, one face, one race. So we all come from the same origins. And Francesca is also Italian, so why not? So we have this agent in Havana. So we have a very interesting friend in the north, in the big north. So when I submitted this project to her, she also appreciated the stories. She liked it, but we wanted to maybe change a little bit because not all the stories were all good, But on future fiction, I try to publish a certain kind of science fiction. So some stories didn't work out very well, or maybe too fantastic, or a little bit too maybe, old style sometimes in some of the stories, I have to say. So we changed it a bit. We added other stories, and we came up with something original. This is something I also like, to produce a selection of stories that it's original. It's made up of what we believe that can be appreciated by our readers. So this is the way that it went from Greece to Italy, and from Italy to the UK. And there is another step we will talk about later. But I would like to now give the word to the people that actually contributed to this amazing book. And I would just, ask about something related to the history, or something related to the not just the past, but what is going on in the last years in science fiction. And because Dimitra has written a very interesting introduction to the book, I would like to ask her this directly, please.
The truth is that science fiction in Greece has kind of a weird history. For a long time, it was considered not exactly art, not exactly high culture. And I think science fiction has had this problem all around the world. But in Greece, it was a bit more pronounced since fiction had to be serious, it had to be political. In order for any kind of fiction or art to be taken seriously, it had to deal with contemporary matters in a pretty direct way. So it was only in the last 2 or 3 decades, I would say, that people eventually accepted that the speculative fiction of any kind can do that. And of course, another factor that contributed is that the nostalgia for the golden age that you spoke about, strangely, was a factor not only in the country that actually produced the golden age, not only in the Anglo-Saxon world, but it kind of influenced people around the world. So people initially were trying to mimic the golden age, even outside the US or the UK. But lately, of course, all this has been going away, slowly but steadily. And people see in science fiction another venue, another vehicle to express themselves and their worries about their worries, their hopes, their fears. And of course, understand that science fiction is a very powerful vehicle to do that, because it frees you from the constraints of actual, not exactly from reality. It sort of allows you to step on reality and imagine a step further, a step beyond, into a better or darker world, depending on what you want to express at the moment. What I really liked about the work Aleph is doing, and the authors that write while being members of Aleph, is that they never try to take it only to one direction. Science fiction, I think, is at its best when it takes into account that the future is not going to be monolithic. And what I really like in science fiction in Greece is that there is always a mixture of both. There is a hope for the future. There is, of course, the fear, the worries, mostly fear, I would say. I think it's kind of, usually it's mostly fear. But on the other hand, there is always this underlying sense that we're going to make it. Maybe we're not going to make it as big and as science fiction of the golden age is telling us. Maybe we're not all going to live in flying cities, or we're going to have flying city traffic or something, but we're still going to make it, which is kind of characteristic, I think, in our fiction in general. The other thing is that now there is a kind of publishing boom, strangely, because, of course, usually the publishing sector is one of the first to be hit in a crisis, in in a tough moment, but it has allowed, the crisis has also allowed for the proliferation of alternative avenues, which, while not always as quality, they don't always do the quality work that a traditional publishing house does, absolutely not. But they might be able to take more risks. So that means that suddenly you could find Greek science fiction, and that encouraged more people to write, and that encouraged more traditional publishing houses to publish also. They wouldn't have thought of that beforehand. And websites also, and social media groups that showed the publishers that there is an audience for that. Maybe for a long while people weren't going to say it out loud that I read and I write science fiction. But the new media has allowed this audience to show its face, even under a Facebook pseudonym or something. So I think at this point, publishers and audience have realized for quite some time now that it's another genre that can actually flourish in Greece. And as we also teach the writing of speculative fiction, we have noticed that a lot of our students are kind of afraid of it. They're not sure how many technical qualifications you need to have, how easy is it going to write science fiction, especially if as a country you do not have NASA in your backyard or something. So they kind of tend to focus in smaller, in the science fiction in the everyday. How is it going to change if you implement this or that? And not always we're not going to write stories, easily going to write stories about space travel. And even though these are always a staple of science fiction, but a lot of them are going to focus on how will my everyday life, with all its problems and all its joys, is going to be transformed if something new comes about. And even though we're always going to write with a dose of pessimism, I think, I would really love to see a solar punk story set in Greece. I mean, 300 days a year of sun, and nobody's writing solar punk right now. I don't understand.
Okay. Have you? I mean, I don't want to interrupt you if you have finished.
No, it's just that what I think we are making huge strides in the subjects we are covering. I'm really curious as to where this will end, and if it's something I want to see is to see more diverse stories. Usually, we use diversity to mean the representations of many groups, but I really would like to see many mindsets right now in Greek science fiction. And I think this is finally becoming a reality.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I have to say that I came across Greek science fiction 10 years ago with Michalis Manolios when he won the. I remember this short story. It just blew my mind. It's Ezra, and I immediately. It's the second short story that I published on the Future Fiction, and I said this story must be mine. And I translated it in Italian. I published it in English. I've managed to sell it in China, and I was so that story. I mean, it won the Ioanna Award, but I think it deserved much more. And then I came across Natalia Theodoridou, and she's also an excellent science fiction writer, and I published an ebook. So I was already in this process, so maybe that's the reason why Natalia wrote to me, and it's no surprise for me. No surprise for me that there is this level of quality of stories in Greece and in general all over the world. But I think that as Dimitra pointed out, at this moment there is a group of people, a generation of writers that are really, they have their ideas very clear, what they want to say, how they want to say it, even though, yes, as you said, maybe you're not into the, hard science fiction, but who cares? I mean, the things you're writing are really interesting, and I particularly love mundane science fiction. And of course, if you have solar punk stories, you have a friend in me. Don't worry. But going to solar punk, I mean, maybe the story of Stam has something to do with the bees, right?
Yes, yeah.
So maybe the bees, are an important element in the sustainability or the circular economy, or however you call it. But maybe you want to say something about that, the inspiration, what drives you?
I'd like to say something that also is very close to what Dimitra said. Science fiction, it has evolved. It's not what it used to be, let's say, 50 or 60 years ago, when it was the golden age, where people were, thinking about space travel and colonizing other planets in other star systems, or even in our star system. And now it is science fiction offers a base, a means to think about what happens around us, but not only how things are now, but how they will evolve. And it is affected by how we see things now, how our lives are at the moment, bad or good, or how the situations are around us and how we feel. So that these feelings, whoever tries to write a fictional story, they express these feelings through the story, and they project something that they see, that everything that happens now will lead where this leads. So this is something that you can see in the story that I co-authored with Yiannis Papadopoulos, The Problem with the Bees, which it is a story that somebody that might read it might say this is not even science fiction, because most of the things that you write there, we wrote there, you can see them around us already. The technology is already here. It's not something. The only thing that you change is slight things about the environment. But again, these are not things that are out of our minds. We can see that we are dealing already with environmental problems. So the only thing that you do is that you enhance them. You make them a bit bigger, which most of us will agree that probably is where the world is going. Environmental problems will increase in the future unless we do something really radical. I think also that what happens with this the collection that of the stories that you have from Greece, it's not a unique thing, not something authentic. And what I mean with that is that we are now, with the globalization and internet, we realize that there are so many people expressing similar concerns through writing stories all over the world. You can find stories from places, from countries that you a few years ago you couldn't even imagine that there are people writing science fiction there. And now you can find stories from Palestine. You can find stories from Africa. It's everywhere. And what I think that shows that not science fiction. I wouldn't say in general that fictional stories they provide us with a way to express how we see things. And as Dimitra said, our fears, our hopes, and someone might say, unfortunately, because the times that we're living at the moment are not, they don't make us feel very optimistic about the future. That also shows in our stories. You see there is some pessimism in how we see the future. Just to wrap up, I would say that I'm one of the people that I would like this to change. And why is that? Because if we try, as writers, whoever writes, if we try to, think about our fears, but instead of expressing our fears in our stories, try to express the opposite. I see that something is not right in the world, and we're going somewhere that it's not how I would like the world to move on to. So what's the opposite? I would like to see the world to move towards that kind of world, which is more optimistic, more good, better for everyone. If we try to write stories about that, then what you offer to people that read your stories is a target, is a point of a waypoint to orientate their course towards, instead of thinking that there is no hope. I'm reading a story about the future and it shows something really dark. So what's the point of fighting or whatever? But if you write something about a world that it's going to be better, then you might make people think a bit more, find some hope in that, and they try whatever they can do on their behalf. They try to do something on that. So
you're trying to see the world with another color, right? Like the story you wrote.
Yeah. So that's okay. So let's talk about the other story. Okay. So yeah, that other story is probably a bit more pessimistic. It's not as yeah. But again, how I see it, at least, without because I mustn't spoil it, because in case when we have the book, So about the story, it is how I see it is about losing. When you lose something that is considered as a standard, you have something, and you think that this is never going to disappear. It's always going to be there. But occasionally, sometimes you lose things that you consider them, that they will be there always, and at some point you lose them. And what happens then? What happens? How you react, and how that affects your life, the lives of everyone around you. So So the other story that I wrote, and it's in this collection, The Color That Defines Me, I think it's about that. And I would like to stop there about that. I don't want to say anything more.
Don't worry. That's okay. So I would like to ask Victor about the process, because I've received this anthology in English, and so there was translation from Greek to English, and I would like to know how that happened. How was it possible, and how difficult it was to do it?
Well, yes. First of all, I would like to comment a bit on what Stamatis said about the pessimism of the stories. When I first got the stories and read them, I thought that it would be a really enjoyable project, because I thought that they were deeply and intimately optimistic in their core. So I thought that oh, I just saw the question there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just showing it. Don't worry, that's for later. Go on.
Sorry.
I'll take it out.
Okay,
I'll take it out.
Yeah. So sorry about that. Because we in Greece, we are very used to writing really pessimistic stories, And so I thought that they all had and displayed in some way this tenacity of the characters, who most of them were immigrants, to survive, and despite the current unfortunate circumstances that they've been experiencing, that they would try for a better future. So that's what I chose perhaps to take out of the anthology at the time. So the translation process, well, it's a delicate process always, because there is this issue of not only translating the language, of course, that would be easy, but actually delivering a piece of writing that could offer the same experience to the English reader as it offers to the Greek reader. And this, of course, includes the Greek experience, because it's a Greek story. So there were some problems concerning lost connotations. Okay, so for example, when the name of the street meant a lot to the Greek public, to the foreign public it would mean nothing. So, or when we had some concepts that could actually carry more than one meaning, we had to reconfigure how to translate that. We were lucky enough, me and Dimitra were lucky enough, who were both involved in the translation as well, we were lucky enough to know most of the writers personally. So we were in contact with the writers, and we tried to figure out how to solve these kind of problems together. But as always with translation, we knew that we had to choose our battles. You cannot have the same piece of writing in another language, no matter how good a writer you are yourself, or no matter how good a translator you are. So yes, we had to make some choices in order to let the story breathe in the English text without flooding it with a lot of over-explanation, or with with historical elements that would bog down the story. So yes, I think that in general, we were really happy with the outcome, and because of the fact that we had a very good level of communication with the writers, we managed to offer something that was very true to its core text. Yes. So I was really glad I worked with everyone, and I think that I wish I could know Japanese to read it in Japanese or in Italian, because it would be very. I don't know Italian either, unfortunately. So yes, because I'm very interested in seeing how this piece evolves, how its piece evolves while it's being translated in another. What's added to it? What more it can give? So yeah.
So maybe this question is relevant at the moment, because what did you think about Lina Theodorou, who was the artist who organized the publication? Did you know that it was funded by the Onassis Foundation's House of Letters and Arts? So maybe you can say something about that.
Yes, Lina Theodorou is a great artist, and of course we're glad that she organized the publication, because if it wasn't for Lina, we wouldn't be there. The pieces from that reflect and relate to this to the exhibition, the original exhibition, that they were also in the Greek version a very organic part of the entire publication. Yes, so I think that we're glad that she took the initiative.
Because you want to say, Dimitra?
Yes, the thing with Lina's intervention, in a way, is that people who have, there is sometimes it can seem for writers who are not do not write in the English language, it can seem like the holy grail to get abroad. So having someone like Lina who had done it before, of course, she had the benefit of being working on a visual medium, so she didn't have to worry about language. Most people think that it couldn't possibly interest anyone else if they are not writing in English, which is, of course, completely wrong. But since she came since she worked on a different medium, she could see that actually there is a lot of interest. The kind of interest we mentioned before about people wanting to see more things coming, not necessarily from the Anglo-Saxon art world, but from any corner of the earth, because we all have something to say. It's as simple as that. And sometimes it can be an advantage to have to say something that has never been said that way before. So I think Lina was capable of seeing that because she knew it could be done. So why not do it with language as well? I mean, translators have to eat somehow.
Yeah, sometimes, yes. So we all thank Lina for bringing us. I remember the PDF had beautiful illustrations, and I think that was part of the exhibition that was shown in Athens, I believe. So yeah, as you said, everybody has something to say, and this book is going from Greece to Italy to the UK, but now the best is still yet to come. So Francesca, you would say something about the last, well, maybe not the last step, but the latest.
The latest, yes, absolutely. So some of you might have seen now on our socials, but of course we managed to go a step further. So the day that we announced the anthology, first of all, we received a very surprise email from America, from the writer Nick Mamatas, who was so excited at the prospect of bringing Greek science fiction into 2 different languages that he actually wanted to read it and do an endorsement for the book. He loved it so much, and in fact, he did, So we were delighted with that as well. And then subsequently, and thanks to the various, I suppose, the networking that grows amongst all of us publishers, and the people we know. But eventually, we also received contact from Japan. And they also were very interested to see this manuscript and to see if there was a chance for them to publish it in Japanese. And so, of course, that came to pass as well. And there was so much excitement because for us was another little victory in that we were able to go another step further to add a 4th language in this push to bring this diversity out there. And also, it's interesting because some of the things that all of you have said, and I'm looking at some of the questions coming up on the comments, in some of the comments, they kind of feel like and also from what you were saying, Dimitra, before as well, is the idea that science fiction or speculative fiction is still somewhat niche and in certain places is seen as something not important or not good enough to be considered literature even in certain aspects, and obviously, so it made me think, as I was reading this comment, obviously I can't comment on the situation in Greece, but as a small publisher in the UK, it's, I think all small presses around the world are fighting very hard to go a little bit against the grain. And I suppose an independent press can really go even more on a leap of faith, if you like, but we can follow our passion and the projects that we really want to bring out there. We don't look at it from a commercial point of view because it isn't about the money. We do this for sheer passion and love. So, when I think about all the effort we put into do every little step, including, Japan, blow your mind, but, we are in Italy and we're here and there. And then I'm thinking every time I take a walk into the main high street bookstores, with all my love for taking a walk through Waterstones, but, I've got 5 floors of book and 2 Billy bookcases of science fiction, well, maybe not 2, but 4, and what I find in there is generally very established name that I knew when I was a child in Rome, so nothing much has changed. So when I really want to look for something more interesting and more original, I go to places like Transreal in Edinburgh, the local, the indie bookshop, which work very closely with us, independent, publisher. I think there is, and that it's such a beautiful thing to witness. It's such a strength. So for me, every little things that we can do to further the spread of culture, it's a victory. Because it is all passion. It is a work of passion for all of us. It is a love that we have. So really, when I think the Japanese release, so the English and the Italian release will be at the end of March, and the Japanese release we're looking at a couple of years from now, perhaps, or the end of next year. So obviously we'll keep you posted on that, and we're all very excited, of course, to have all 3 books in our hands. But,
yes.
So I can see there are also other questions coming up. So I'm going to pass it on to you, Francesco.
Now we will open up there are some questions, so we will open up. Okay. I think this is the question that is coming up next. So people are curious to know about the stories. So yes, I've tried to ask Stam a couple of things about his stories, but of course we also have the Dimitra, who is also a contributor as a writer, and maybe you can also say something about the other stories. I don't know. I remember some. I've read them all. So now we can throw in some themes.
Sure. I mean, we could talk about every single one of them in detail, since when you translate a story, you really get to interact with it. But we'll try to be brief. Rosewood, I think, is the story that was about submarine tourism, right? And the one you mentioned previously, it's from Vasso Christou, and she's imagining an Athens which has been partially submerged due to climate change. But of course, even if your city is submerged, you have to live somehow. So Greece turns to a different kind of tourism this time. And she follows the story of an Albanian immigrant, or rather the daughter of Albanian immigrants, which was an issue in translation, as we wondered if, we usually speak about immigration, but it means different things to different countries, depending on the people who move from one country to another, into how well your government manages to handle the migration. So the protagonist is a second-generation migrant, and she's an accomplished diver, and she's discovering slowly that, again, we cannot do spoilers, but she's discovering that even in a catastrophe, there are always ways to profit, even from the worst part of a disaster. And survive/profit, we'll see. And so this is a story the story that first made us think that, okay, they might think they have written something dystopian, but actually this is the spirit of always surviving, that people sometimes do not understand it as optimism, but it actually is. And I think that it kind of brought this kind of story brings to the forefront not only environmental concerns, but the fact it hits hard, the fact that it's not the environmental concerns are not something abstract, but something that is going to change how you live. So, but most of all, I think we like the protagonist's voice, her humor, her strength. And then it's Kostas Charitos' story, Social Engineering, which had to do with a question that has troubled Greece since ever, which is, okay, you invent democracy, good for you, but how exactly does it work? And I think it was a story that was prescient in many ways, because we have seen the power of social media in elections and how quickly things can turn sour. And so he's again using humor and a protagonist, not exactly an anti-hero, but a person who is trying to survive, who's trying to do what's best for him. And as in Vasso's story, it's an everyday man, and not somebody. It's a person who will have to live with the consequences of the future and decide what his part will be in it. But of course, what stayed with us while we translated was the fact that people that how do you translate ancient Greek? Do you do the and thou? No, you don't. You just leave it as it is. It's not like we can speak ancient Greek anyway.
What about your story?
Yeah. Ioanna Bourazopoulou, The Human City of Athens is a very brief story. It was in a way the most fantastical in that the focus was on, it had to do with the impact of migration. Only this time everybody is an immigrant as people move about trying to serve the needs of a system that despite creating human cities is nothing but humane. And I think what hit us the hardest was the moments in which the protagonist is waxing nostalgic. Because even though the protagonist has moved into Athens from another place, it's something we can all deeply care about. Because this is a country which I think we're 11 million people and there are another 10 million Greeks abroad. So migration, we might be an issue now, but it used to be, we all know that it used to be us trying to find a place in a world that wasn't always welcoming to you. Of course, Baghdad Square by Michalis Manolios, which again has an everyday man, an everyday woman this time, stepping into a rather unfamiliar picture, which ought to feel familiar. And I must say that the story goes quickly to a very different direction than the one you initially imagined. It starts, of course, as a story about what happens when we get virtual reality, and then it becomes something else. And what I really liked was the fact that it doesn't matter exactly what the big secrets of the universe are. You still have to live in that universe, no matter what. You have to continue going on. And this is a juxtaposition that is often very interesting in science fiction in general, because it's usually about, okay, what are the secrets? Can I go to the center of the universe? Can I find out if aliens made me or whatever? But in the end of the day, you still have to get up and do the dishes. So we really liked how the story changed directions one or two times very organically. Yiannis' story, The Bee Problem. Okay, we have to, and Stamatis' story, of course, we really have to say that we like having a protagonist, we like seeing a protagonist like this one. If you don't mind, unless Stamatis, you want to interrupt me and be angry at me, we loved that the protagonist was so totally unlikable. Because how often, usually we have the opposite problem. We have people writing something very racist and something very sexist, and when we as teachers say, okay, this won't fly, and they are like, no, it's just an attitude, he doesn't mean it that way, she's just joking. This time you have somebody who is unapologetically racist. The guy has to live in a semi-anarchist, self-organized commune. And not only he has to live, he has to help this community prosper while still being inside his awful self. And of course, nothing is black and white, okay? Because even the people we deeply disagree with in a level where they enrage us, at least in an online conversation, they are people too, and they'll do the best of things and the worst of things. And the point of reading a story is not always to take sides or to say that the evil got annihilated or it won over completely. Yes, I knew it. The point of the story is that we are all human, and this can mean a lot of things, from the best to the worst. So yes, this was a story that really got us talking between us, Victor and me. Another story that made us think was Kelly's, because it has to do with the issue of what gets considered privileged. And again, we're not going to spoil it, but what if technology gives us the possibility of being better and better, are we going to take it to the point that nothing is ever going to be enough? And while this is a concept that some can say, okay, it has been done to death, I mean, once you've seen Gattaca, what else do you want? The truth is that, again, seeing how it will affect an everyday person and not a future astronaut is something that gives you pause, because it gets you thinking, okay, how many, what Kelly has written, of course, is absurd. We're never going to go to such lengths. And then you look at yourself and say, okay, to what lengths have I gone right now? What would one of the previous generations considered absurd? And then, did you really do that to yourself? And of course, you would be like, yes, I don't want to be an outcast. I don't want to. Why? What's wrong? And it really gets you thinking about now, which I think is, in many ways, the point of science fiction. Of course, it's space, beams, and aliens. It's always that. But it's also to make you think about now. And also, Lina's short stories, I think they are a lot like her artwork in that they create an absurd situation, and then you realize that she's tackling with greater themes. Who am I forgetting? I'm sure I'm forgetting someone.
Yourself?
Oh.
Yes, yourself.
Okay, Eugenia and Natalia, I think they are the most well-known outside Greece, of course. And I think what I really liked in both stories is the language. It was really appreciated, and I think they are technically a bit more different than the other stories. And but what I really stayed with me is that they. From writing directly in English, they have this ability. Most of the other authors wrote in Greek without having a translation in mind, so they went directly for what they wanted to speak about. And Natalia and Eugenia are connecting, I think, the Greek experience and tradition and the weight of the history to what is actually a more universal thing. Of course, all stories are universal because all stories are told by humans. But the way they are trying to speak about something not exactly Greek in itself, not exactly Athens, not exactly now, but at the same time something that could be relevant no matter who you are and where you are is what stayed with us. Of course, we haven't translated these stories. We need to specify that. But it's always something that always has stricken us in their work. And finally, yes, well, my story started as a gothic horror story, and it evolved into something completely different again, because it started as a very pessimistic story about conspiracies and a secret. And in the end, it came out by the fact that no matter how much we change as a race, we are always going to worry about the same things. It doesn't matter what the secrets of the universe are, because what you'll always want to do is live long and prosper in the end. And maybe you're going to choose that over any actual answers or any actual great truths.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone, please don't send bombs to my house. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, there is another interesting question now. I don't know who wants to answer this, but how does Greek speculative fiction tackle the topic of minorities, broadly speaking, and what kind of minorities are visible and not visible? And let's say that this question, let's say it's related to this other references from the Muslim Greek minority show up in recent publications. So I think they are connected in a way. And I don't know if you have any answer to this.
Well, okay, yes. Nowadays, more and more minorities are getting more and more visible. In Greek, we don't have many ethnic minorities, but if you come to think of it, yes, we do. but they were invisible until pretty much now. And that's what has helped, the internet has helped a lot to bring these minorities into a spotlight, let's say, hopefully, because we realized by looking and reading about people abroad, minorities abroad, we realized we have our own. So, surprise. So, yes, there aren't a lot of stories that actually involve or work with the issue of an ethnic minority or a religious minority. But I think that as we move forward, we're going to see more representation, and we're going to see more people trying to understand and express what they feel about this whole issue. But having said that, it was the fact that the protagonists of the stories, of the short stories in the anthology, are mostly immigrants. That's one of the first things that hit us, because we hadn't realized how much the Greek writers are concerned about this thing. We are. And we just hadn't realized, and we increasingly are more and more concerned. And I think that I'm very optimistic about how this will unfold, seeing that in Greece, in a slower pace perhaps, but we do follow the changes that have swept speculative fiction abroad. So, yes, I think that we will see more such stories, and deeper stories, and of course more complex stories with such characters or with such themes. Now, as for other minorities, such as the LGBTQ, and well, yes, we don't have a lot of representation. Again, there aren't many stories with, I don't know, LGBTQ people. There are some books, and there are some, and increasingly, from what I see with my students, there are more and more people trying to include such characters in their stories, and not making them, of course, not representing them in a stereotypical way. Yes, so I think this is changing too, and I never thought. Sometimes when we first started teaching, and it was 5 years ago, I had a lot of students who were asking, okay, is it okay if I have a gay character? Is it okay? They were sort of afraid, and it kind of clashed with the idea they had in their head of what fantasy should be or what science fiction should be, and is there really space for such characters in the genre? So, yeah, of course it's okay. Why not? I mean, yeah. And this question, I don't hear it anymore. They are coming to me and asking me, knowing that I belong to this particular minority group, and they ask me, okay, how should I do that, or would that feel wrong? And I'm glad for that. But they're not asking if it's wrong or if it's okay. So I think that's a step forward, that we're gonna see more such stories, more and more. And there was a book by this year by Publicevich, yes, I think. Its main theme was, the main characters are a lesbian couple, and it's one of these rare occasions that you see big publishing houses picking up such books and investing in them and publishing them. So I think that this shows that it's a start. Yes.
Can I add something on that? Greece is a crossroads, or is like a crossroads. Okay, we as a country we are between three continents: Europe, Asia, and Africa. And whether we like it or not, there are people that don't like it. But immigration is an issue that we are going to deal with for many years to come, and it was always an issue. Human beings always migrate, so it is unavoidable that we will see more and more stories about that, especially in Europe, where it is one of the topics that is being discussed in a daily basis. In Greece, it is the issue of migration, especially from poorer countries, countries with lots of problems with conflicts. We deal with people that they are coming every day from these countries, and unfortunately, there are people that they see it with a very negative, with very negative feelings. Nevertheless, it is 100% certain that in the next 20, 30 years, we are going to see this society in Greece to change, meaning that we're going to see more second generation migrants to live among us, and not only live as migrants, as Greek citizens involved in every aspect of the society, in public, as public servants, as professionals, as teachers in schools, everywhere. So I think that speculative literature will show this and in the anthology we have lots of stories that they involve characters. They have characters from other countries living in Greece, and we see that they live as like everyone else, like a Greek citizen. They're not outsiders. They are people living, in Greece. So that as part of the ethnic minorities, and as Victor said, I think that it was time, and I hope that we will see a lot more stories with characters from the LGBTQ community and group, and we have to, because they are there. There are people like us. They have lots of things to say. And one last thing, it's that people sometimes we say we are science fiction, and they imagine spacecrafts and aliens and laser guns and whatever. Science is not only about it's not only rocket science. It's not only mathematics. It's not only physics. Okay, science is also sociology and political sciences and all this. So when you say science fiction, sorry,
economy.
Economy, yes.
Yeah,
so when we say that we write science fiction, we might, write something about science that it's not, the how they call it, the STEM sciences. Okay, it is about politics. It is about sociology. It is science fiction. Okay,
philosophy.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I might jump here because you know why I called future fiction my small press, because I believe that the future comes together with language, aesthetics, food, musics, all these arts. It's not just the mathematics or a new engine. If you think about the technology we use and the language we use, if you say that to your grandmother or grandfather, would not understand a word of it, because new technology calls for new languages, new uses, new dimensions that were absolutely closed until some years ago. So I really enjoy what you said. I really appreciate the fact that we should not be just looking at the hard part of science fiction, but the hard part comes also with the outside and the inside and the above and the behind. So everything must be taken into consideration. I would like to go into a slightly different direction now, because as we seen, you have in Greece kind of movement, even though it might be small, but you have received, for example, the support of the Onassis Foundation, and you have also kind of organization called Aleph that is supporting the writers. So I would like to know what's the situation for the writers. Do you have kind of support or help or some venues, some magazines, some publishing houses as a reference, stuff like that?
I think we have about 1 billion publishing houses, if I'm counting correctly. No, honestly.
Oh my God, that's too much.
That's the number approximately. The thing is that the written word has a very special place in Greece. But it's also a precarious position because I think everybody is an author here, more or less.
Okay.
But also to be an author means that you are a bit insane too, which is a paradox, but we do finely with it. I think what we would really like to see at this point is that writing is not exactly a hobby. And as long as it is considered a hobby, it's not only, and it's not considered something that takes hard work and it takes craft, and sometimes it might need lessons. And there is not, until this concept shifts, I'm afraid we are going to face some hardships in getting the proper venues, because yes, there are magazines, there are publishing houses, there are anthologies, there are concerts, there are conferences. I think in the last 10 years we've had a lot of major cons just focused on speculative comic books, fantasy culture, nothing. Some extra exhibitions like the one in Onassis Foundation about science fiction, and they, until of course this year, they were multiplying, and that was very encouraging. Of course, workshops, writing workshops. Writing workshops focusing on editing, focusing on speculative, focusing on romance writing. Finally, with the help of the internet, of course, all these were coming into fruition. And of course, we believe that it will continue to be so. And yes, there are many new venues and organizations. And so there is no lack of energy and will. What I think we want to see in the next few years is a bit more, some more technocrats. And Aleph is one of the technocrats. I don't know if they like the term or not, because they are very good at organizing things. Aleph knows exactly when their next workshop will be. They have a magazine. They know exactly when it will be out, who will be featured. They will hire the artist for the cover. They will have the translation a day before the deadline. This is what we want to see more of, because everybody is a happy amateur, but it takes the people who really have the organizational skills. That's why I said in the beginning, we should not look at it as a hobby. So, when you have the time, when you have the space, if you feel like it, for something to flourish, you need the mean people. The people who are going to chase you around with a whip. Yeah. And not wait for the muse to strike. I think the more people understand that, no, it's not the muse, it's you sitting in a keyboard and doing the same thing again and again.
No.
But of course, there are always these people, so I think we'll be managed.
And it's the fact that they're contributing in their way in the community that's given so much to speculative fiction writers in Greece. Aleph has given so much because they keep the community alive. They make sure to organize a lot of things. And I think that the support that we all get from Aleph and from their events and their initiatives is very important to keep us going, because it's a small market, it's a small country, and we are kind of like 200 people writing science fiction and fantasy and stuff. So we need to get together, and that's what Aleph does. It brings us together, and it gives us the opportunity to have such opportunities like novelas, and so that's very important.
If I may add something, we had some students. We teach online too, so we had some students from smaller cities, and like Italy or the UK, which of course still have their small places. Small places here can be really small. So they contacted us and they said, I write the weird stuff. And we're like what? What do you mean the weird stuff? And they're like, like science fiction and fantasy. And it's just three of us here, and we are kind of branded like weirdos. And then, of course, you bring them into contact with something like Aleph, and they realize there's nothing weird about what they are doing. And of course, the moment you realize how many people like and enjoy that, then you can leave aside all the whatever is holding you back. And of course, since nobody is Google, it's nice to have people who can share their findings with you, the new fiction, the new anthologies, the new movies, the music, even the series. It's always nice to find your people and connect with everyone else, because after all, there is no form of art that is isolated from everything else. That's why you don't have to brand yourself a science fiction fanatic to really enjoy a science fiction book or enjoy a movie.
So you think that if anybody from Aleph, look at this. Okay, so I have a question now. I would like to ask if they can organize a party when we have these three books from Italy, from UK, and from Japan, and we meet in Athens, I think, and we can have a party. Maybe they can organize something for the community, because, man, this is a case study. I mean, I will talk about this project wherever I go, because this is so special and unique. It doesn't happen every day that you have this, 1, 2, 3, 4 publication all together. It's I mean, starting from a small press like we are. So it's really I don't know of any other, given the size of our presses, right?
Definitely, we definitely have a party, and I'm sure that Antonia is listening. The president is listening, and she will make sure that there is a party, and we're all invited. Yes.
Oh yes, there's my friend Michalis, and
I can see.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Everybody now is reacting to this. Cool.
Yes, of course. About the party. Just as I was talking about, you guys like the strict technocrats, and of course you come up about the party. We bring the switch.
All right. That's good. Yeah. There are no other questions, but I have maybe one more. Curiosity, maybe, or anyway, I wanted to. You talk about migration. You talk about people coming to Greece, and we all on the Mediterranean border experience this huge pressure and this huge problem, of course. But as it happened in Italy, it happened also in Greece. We also are an immigrant country, so a lot of people moved from Greece, and I wanted to ask about the fact that there are many Greek authors that are outside, so the diaspora. Well, maybe Stam, you can, how it is to write from where you are in the south of England, where you live.
I live and work in Southampton at the moment, so yes, on the south of England, yeah. So what can I say on that? In any case, I had to migrate. My migration was not by choice. It wasn't. I left Greece because I wanted to. So I can say that in a very, very small degree, I identify myself. I see myself as someone that I can feel how people that migrate in Italy, in Europe, from Asia and Africa, how they feel, because they have to. And not, please, I'm not in the same level with them. They face extremely difficult problems. Okay, I was lucky because I migrated. When I migrated, the UK was still in the European Union, so I was lucky because it was very easy for me to come here.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I had to do it because there was no other option for me. I had to leave Greece. At that time, it was very difficult because of the economical crisis. So the thing is now that being here, I was lucky. Talking about the writing part, okay, of my life, I was lucky because suddenly I found myself in an environment that science fiction was not seen by other people as it is seen in Greece. Here, it is very it is a part of literature that it is recognized, and you can see in bookshops there are huge areas with that they're dedicated specifically to science fiction fantasy. So and there are so many publications, and not only that, but I was very lucky because in the UK, when I came in 2014, there was the World Science Convention, and I was very lucky to attend the convention. I saw people around me that I couldn't even imagine seeing them in Greece, like Kim Stanley Robinson or representatives of NASA and ESA. And I listen to people that they work in the publishing industry in panels. I participate. I attended conversations about how to write, things to write, where science fiction is heading, and things like that. I was so. So I was. That was a very profound experience. Okay, and not only that, here in the UK there are also dozens of other conventions that you can attend, and people. There were opportunities for me and things to see that I couldn't see in Greece. So that was very helpful and inspiring. Other than that, the thing. Then you're dealing a problem because you see that the if you want to give your work, what you do, what you write, to give it out there to the public and have some, and see how that stands, you have the opportunity to do that because you are in the almost in the center of the publication of the science fiction publication of the world. Okay, you are in London, you are in the UK, so you have access to other sources and other how do I say? Anyway, you have access a better access to that thing, and then you have to choose. What do? Can you write in English straight, from the beginning? Or do you have to write in Greek, which is your native language, and you know it, and you have you can work with it in a better way. So that's also a problem. I haven't tried yet to write a story straight from the beginning in English, but that is I think a problem now with many people living in countries outside of that the native language is not English, but they would like to have access to a bigger public, to be an audience. And but here at least I have the opportunity of choosing. I have that choice, and I can try. And but I just and to wrap up with it is. I had that, the access to conventions and a bigger picture of science fiction, but it doesn't matter where you live, okay? Because now we have the internet, and we can use that, and if we want to, I think we can have access to to these things, no matter where you live.
I also wanted to add about this. One of the things as a publisher and also as an Italian who has lived in Scotland for 20 years is that of a particular mindset. And I find that fascinating and intriguing because I find that you are in a sort of, I'm not saying a limbo, but it's a new situation. You know, there is part of you that has, say, in my experience, 20 years of full-on Italian life, specifically from Rome. And then suddenly you have 20 years of Scottish life and everything revolving around that. So the way your brain thinks, if I were to write from an Italian point of view, I don't think it would be the same kind of Italian I would have written 20 years ago, In fact, in this coming June, I have an author publishing a book on Indian mythography in the diaspora, and it was fascinating going through what she was describing, Puja Biswas, and it made me think, because when I look at stories that come from people who are no longer in their original country but in their new country, there is such a almost like many shades of the initial nationality, and I think it's fascinating because it's creating a different layer to the writing, in a different culture. And on the one hand, you might find someone that is so radicated to what went on 20 years ago that they might not either realize that things have changed or they're no longer like that, which is also quite interesting. But at the same time, if they try to recollect and use something they've learned now, they find themselves in a completely new area, in a completely new zone. And I think for a publisher, it's so exciting, it's a brand new world. So it's
good. Okay. Can I ask something as well? All right. So, given that we have so many Greek writers trying to write in English and do something in the international market, but most times they seem to be afraid, they seem to be hesitant because they don't know what kind of obstacles there are for them if they try to publish something, because sometimes they feel that they don't know what the international market might be asking right now. So is there any kind of advice on what people who are not native English speakers should be aware of when trying to write in English and promote their work in English, in the English market? Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me say that there is actually no real issue as long as you are focused on the quality of your story. There is no secret. There is no alternative reality in the international market. The fact that Michalis Manolios won the Ioanna Award and that Natalia Theodorou published regularly, and Eugenia
also awarded the Fantasy Award.
Yeah. And Eugenia, I think I can't pronounce her surname, but Rose. She's online. She's Eugenia Rose. Also, so let me tell you. Let me say it straight. You don't have to think about the international market. You have to think about do the best you can with your story, and don't try to please the emperor. Okay? Don't think about that. You don't have to cross any particular gate, or you don't have to ask permission to go to any place. You do the best you can from your point of view to represent your questions, your issues. And I would even go farther and say, don't write in an alien language. Write in your language, because we are writers. and let the translator, a professional, do the work. So Jack Palahniuk said, it's not because you put feathers in your ass that you become a chicken. Okay, so you cannot become something else just by pretending to, So you want to be a writer, be a writer, and be concerned with the quality of what you write, the themes you explore, the characters, and then, of course, there's no guarantee. I mean, this is a work of art. So failure is your friend, is your best friend, and you have to accept it for what it is. It's a way to improve yourself. So it's a long process, but people are, from any country, and especially in this moment, it's very relevant. I'm pushing and pushing for science fiction in translation all over the world. I'm trying to spread this element because, but also there's another element important. You don't have to think about the English market. There are many other markets, and just like we have tested now and proved now that you went from Greece to Italy, from Italy to UK, yes, but then you went to Japan. And so we have to disengage from the anglosphere magnetism. We all think about going there and please the emperor. But we can build networks of small presses that make ourselves survive and make ourselves visible in another way. We don't have always to knock on their doors. We can knock on their doors, but not thinking that it's the ultimate and it's the only place to go. So I hope this answers the question.
Sure, thank you.
Can I add something on what Francesco just said? Okay, I'm not in a million times. I mean, I'm not an expert or anything. Just from my own small experience with that. Okay, it's just. First of all, I understand what Francesco just said about not knocking on the emperor's door. Okay, I agree 100% with that. Nevertheless, we need a common ground where we can communicate, all of us, from all over the world. Fortunately or unfortunately, however anyone wants to see it, that common ground at the moment is the English language. Maybe in the future will be Chinese language. I know. At the moment, it is the English language. Okay, so that means that if we want to reach bigger audience, and I'm not talking about only the native English-speaking audience, but I'm also audience in China and Japan and Nigeria or wherever. Probably we will have to do that with English. I think
yes,
okay, that's my impression.
It's right. It's correct. But one thing is to use English as a bridge. Okay, we are now talking in English as a way to communicate. One thing is to produce art. So because of the Babel Tower, because we are doomed with this separation of languages, we need to, find a way to communicate. And I totally agree with you. Maybe one day we will have a real-time artificial intelligence dealing with translation, so we will not care about that. I mean, Star Trek imagined that long ago. But as long as we don't have that, we need to use the humans, the translators. So I am just saying that it's not possible that 3% of what is published in the US comes from non-English language. And in that 3% are included all the languages of the world. This is the openness of the US market. So you want to go there? Yeah, please. I mean, it's really, really a very small place to go there. So this is I'm not just throwing numbers. This is a research made by the Rochester University, the 3% barrier. Okay, And on the other side, if you go to any kind of bookstore all over the world, you will see that the science fiction shelf is made of probably 60% books in English, and even more. So this is a kind of cultural dominance that we need to address with local community, with our identity. Because if I start to write in English and my daughter starts to write in English, what happens to my identity? What happens to the Italian things that are belonging to Italy? The flowers that are just born in Italy, or the birds that are just in Greece, or your identity as a community. I mean, we all have a tradition. So are we prepared to give up that to enter a market? I'm not. So maybe it takes more time. It took me 10 years to have a book published in the US, one in the UK, and next year one in China. 10 years. And I was lucky. But this is the way it is. So I think we have to address the issue as an international community. And we need books for the quality, not for the country where they come from, not for the language where they are written. So this is just my try to make a better distribution of stories, because there are excellent stories everywhere. It's just that if you don't translate them, you don't know. I mean, I know Michalis Manolios, for me, is a big writer. It's just that nobody knows about him. Not outside of Greece, of course.
Yeah, but you just sorry, Francesca.
Oh,
no,
I finished.
Yeah, I was going to say that one of the things I've enjoyed very much as a Scottish publisher is that Creative Scotland allows us fund to translate Scottish authors into other languages, for example. And even just the fact that, Victor has been working on the translation of these stories for us, or the fact that I have a Japanese translator working with a Japanese author for one of our future book, the fact that one of my authors is Spanish, and his Spanish book was translated into English from me, and then an Italian press translated that into the Italian. So what I mean is that there is a lot of goodwill out there and a lot of interest from bringing an original language into something else. And for example, one of our current comic, which is shortlisted for the British Fantasy Award, The Ozone Diary, has been translated from the Finnish, thanks to the Finnish Institute, because they recognized how good it was and they wanted to make sure that it could be the bridge, as Francesco was talking about, so that it could reach other. But yes, you write in your own language, you express in your own language, So I think I love the idea of using, the local community. We are, after all, in a global village, So let's use our local talent, our local community, our local translators that will help us to bring our own voices over there. And I want to see the role of translators really flourish even more, because sometimes you feel like, it's like, it's almost like it's just the name of the author or whatever, but no, the translator, good God, without them, we wouldn't be able to have that bridge. So whoever they are, wherever they are as essential to bring out that individual voice, just as, Francesco was saying, absolutely. So.
Yeah. All right. I think we are 90 minutes now. You tired? Want to go to bed? Yeah, I don't know. If you...
Authors don't sleep, isn't that? We are supposed to stay up until 6 a.m. being tortured or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But we still have 35 people connected, so that means a lot. It means that they want more.
If it's okay to add a tiny thing to the previous discussion, since we were lucky to translate some pieces that were later published into the English language, or in international presses and so on. And I must say that the authors that were translated, in our opinion, were the ones that weren't trying to appeal to anyone. Of course, when we are saying that you have to keep some things in mind about an international audience, we usually mean and the stories were very based off in the Greek tradition, but not all of them. They were not folk pieces. It's just that who you are is expressed in your writing, unless you are trapped into making a very derivative work. Okay, hegemony is a thing. You might subconsciously try to channel the well-known authors who, yes, happen to be part of the Anglo-Saxon tradition, but usually that's not, at least in our experience, that's not what will get published, just imitating what somebody else wrote. What will get published is a really good piece, as simple as that. And I think Nick Mamata said it very well in Starve Better. It's a piece of advice we always take to heart, that you can write a good piece by a really good piece by developing your craft. But you can only write a great piece by being naked in front of the page, by revealing what you really want to say. And this is the hardest thing to do, because almost everyone can take a class and take the lessons to heart and write something that is technically correct. But if you want your piece to resonate, you have to really be honest on the page, right? So from what we have seen, you do not have to pander to any audience. You just have to write. After all, it's not like you're going to make millions out of that thing. So why not simply write what you want to do? Why else would you do that in the first place? Also, sorry, I got distracted by the question. And,
no, it's not a question. I'm popping stuff and it's coming.
Yeah.
Don't worry about me.
So I don't think
I'm playing.
I don't think people should worry. But there are two things that, in my opinion, they should be worried about. One is that if you localize your story a lot, it's best not to rely, what Victor said before, it's best not to rely too much on the connotations people who are from the same country as you are going to make. For example, in Baghdad Square, we had a lot of street names. To a Greek person, they mean everything. This is the posh neighborhood. This is the working neighborhood. Okay, these things cannot really be translated, and you cannot add footnotes or a paragraph-long explanation of who actually goes to have dinner there and why it's important. So yes, if you might need to edit your story to make sure it will transfer what you need to say without the need for name references. And the second thing is that it's good to understand, it's good to always take a look, if you really want to reach such an audience, that thankfully there is a lot more sensitivity currently in the speculative fiction world about issues that some countries might not catch up with immediately. For example, this is why sometimes we have to tell authors, especially authors that we know that, we know you do not want to add a racist or a sexist connotation or overdo it with the violence, but this is not going to go down well. If it's an integral piece, if it's an integral part of your piece, don't take it out, because after all, it's your piece. But if it was accidental, if it's a part of the way we still speak, because yes, language is character, language is destiny, language is a lot of things. If it wasn't intentional, you have to think twice, because things are changing. And sometimes your country may not be at the same pace, but that's okay. That's why you have professionals, or why you just take a look at, or you have a beta readers or something like that. And of course, the most important thing that you said is that there are no guarantees, right? You try for what you think will work, and of course, nobody can guarantee that something will work, and that's okay.
Yes, unfortunately, like that.
Can I add something on what Dimitra just said? I realized that when I came here, I was involved in a writing group where we were, exchanging stories here in the UK and commenting on this. And I was surprised when I received some comments from British writers that they were when I was giving them stories of my own, that they had elements that I was thinking about these elements as a Greek, but here in the UK they were perceiving them in a different way, and they were never they couldn't understand them in the way I was. So I had to adapt that, and I had my choices were either had to change the story and these elements to make them more acceptable by British readers, or I had somehow to change that element in a way that it wasn't going to lose its significance for the story, but it would be given in a way that the British readers will accept it and understand it and then move on, not being focused on that and lose the rest of the story. So that is also a point when you write a story and you want to address an international audience. That is a thing. And
yeah, but did you ask the British writer to do the same for Greece?
Yes. So here is what you said before. We have a cultural dominance, whether we like it or not. Because, for example, in Greece, we are bombarded every day from Hollywood, and in our television we have American movies. In most of the bookshops, they sell stories translated from English speaking writers. So in a way, we are affected by their culture, but they are not affected by ours, by the contemporary Greek culture. Okay, so that is a problem. So I'm unfortunately, Greece is a tiny part of the world comparing to the United States or Britain. Okay, so they have unavoidably affected my way of thinking, but I haven't. So I can understand them. So just to finish that. Sure. About Michalis' story with lots of road names. Okay, the American or the Italian will never understand the name of the roads. Okay, what it just roads. But for a Greek person, this makes some sense when reads the story. But when an American writer writes about New York and an avenue or and Hyde Park or whatever, we immediately understand what they are writing for, what they are writing about, because we have a picture of New York. They don't have a picture of Athens or a small village in Greece, but we have a picture of a small village in Texas, for example. Okay, so that is a thing, and we can't avoid that at the moment.
Yes. Okay. Let me. Well, you are right on the power of imagination, which transformed itself into colonizing the minds. Okay, so that's correct. But I could agree with you for a book of Proust, where he was writing for kind of people that had never been to Paris, and so he had to describe the little streets and the things of Paris for probably people that would never travel to Paris. But it doesn't apply to the normal Texan people, because they know what Greece is. And if they don't, it's because they're lazy and because they're ignorant. And that applies to everybody. Because if you don't know what Greece is, okay, I'm not saying the name of the street, okay? But I think that anybody has seen the Acropolis, and anybody has seen how is a typical village in Hierapetra or Heraklion or Naxos or whatever, the Greek islands, okay? So there's two levels. Yes, they conquer our mind, so they have the right not to explain to us, okay? But on the other side, we have the right to say who we are. We don't have to become invisible, become transparent, or become bend our knee to them just because we don't have the same. But the same applies. I mean, I understand when you say Greece is small compared to the US, but what happens to China? The same thing applies to China. So I mean, it's a matter. The same thing applies to Russia. The same thing applies to any other country. it's because this is the way the colonization works. So we have to decolonize the future because we have a place to live there as anybody else. So I think they just need to learn. I mean, when I was at the Helsinki the panel, and there was a panel on translation, right? So I said, who can speak 2 languages here? And people were raising their hands. Who can speak 1 language here? And people were, these were the Americans or English. And then, of course, you go on and say, who can speak 3 languages? And you have the Scandinavians and all this stuff. So it's also a matter of being open to the world. You don't want to be open to the world. Nobody's saying that. But when it comes to science fiction, this is a genre that calls for exploration, for diversity, for going to go beyond your limits.
Yes.
Sorry,
Francesco, go finish. Sorry.
No. I just say, when it comes to science fiction, it's normal that the reader should be curious. For me, that's my thing.
I was thinking when we were talking about the streets, there is a book that Francesco wrote called Bloodbusters, which I have published in this year of COVID in English, and I was reflecting on the fact that when I first read the book, it transported me immediately back home because we're both from Rome. It's our city. I knew everything he meant by everything he said, At the same time, people that have read the book and had only just visited Rome enjoyed that feeling of that something that, even though they didn't remember where one street was or whatever, but they would remember the main landmarks, etc. And then there were people who had never visited Rome, and yet they could tell from his language that this was the Rome that maybe they had in their mind, and if it wasn't, they were like, oh wow, surprise, yes, actually this is so interesting, So for me, I would never want things to change just because the audience might not get it. That's why I love this whole idea of the decolonization that we were discussing. I absolutely love that, and that's why Bloodbusters has been so well received in the English market as well, because people can recognize or can learn about something else. They can tell there is a genuine knowledge of a place that feeds into the story and it makes the story beautiful. So I love that, actually, personally.
Thank you. It's a great discussion. Really, really, really interesting. Okay. I don't know. Do you want to throw in any other arguments? I'm having fun, so.
It's an endless question, I think. It has everything, culture, hegemony, language, expression. So it's not like we're going to reach somewhere, just so we're clear.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's about time. I don't know. Maybe I could ask something about what you are working on at the moment.
Secrets. Share.
Come on, don't be shy.
Okay, I think I have the weird answer, because we said so many times that science fiction is not all about lasers and spaceships and aliens, but sometimes it is. And I'm saying this because in trying sometimes to create something important and significant, we forget to have fun in our writing. And especially for Greek, I must say that especially for Greek authors, this sometimes there is no in between. Either we have to write a grand political piece uniting the left and the right and going into the future, or we have to write the upteenth derivative work, ripping off Star Wars or something. So I'm trying to write a very fun science fiction story with monsters right now, and enjoy it. And send it off and hope somebody picks it up. So yeah, I'm going very pulp at the moment.
Very pulp. Okay.
Very pulp.
Good.
What about you, Victor? Are you working on a particular piece, translation, or your own? Or?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to work on a piece about language and the new infectious language that actually changes people and reality. I'm really trying. I'm a slow writer. It takes me forever to write a short story. But yes, I think it was. I found our discussion really interesting because I'm working on this colonization of language and how new elements in a language and the new evolution of a language could frighten people and could create concepts that are initially perceived as scary and abject, but in reality, they're here to liberate us and give us more tools to express ourselves. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that. We'll see. I'm trying.
What about you, Stan?
Okay, yeah. At the moment, unfortunately, I'm not writing or thinking about it. Wrong. I'm not writing anything. Okay, I don't have a project or anything working on it. There are other things in my life going at the moment, which they occupy 100% of my time. Nevertheless, my mind always brings forward dozens of ideas all the time, and I find myself thinking, okay, that's a good story, a good idea for a story, and that's a good idea for something, always, all the time.
Yeah.
So my mind can't stop thinking about it. So I really hope that at some point I will find the time to start working on something again.
I must say that the remedy for your problem is the Aleph workshops, because Victor said he's a slow writer, but what actually is happening is that he's deliberating on a story, and then the Aleph workshop deadline comes up, and the story has to finish, which is amazing. That's what we were discussing before, that you have to have a community, you have to have the people to push you, the feeling that there is an initial audience. So yes, Aleph workshops are the answer to your problem, Stamatis.
Dimitra, thank you for the advice. I'm absolutely certain about it. I'm 100% certain that this is the answer. I've participated in several Aleph workshops, and I enjoyed every one of them. Okay, they were amazing. They are amazing. I know about that. It's not only because you get feedback, which is very, very significant and important for your work, but also because we enjoy ourselves there. Unfortunately, sorry.
And wait a lot.
And we wait a lot. Yes. Unfortunately, at the moment, I can't do that because there are other things that prevent me from doing. But in the future, I really hope that I will be back at some point.
All right. And if you have a solar punk story, remember me.
Send it to Francesco.
Definitely.
Excellent.
All right. Good. Well, I think it's about time. And what I would like to ask you is to say greeting in Greek. I really want to listen to your language. I love Greek. So please say goodbye to the readers or say something in your language.
Who starts?
Stamatis.
Okay, before I continue in Greek, I would just like to say that I would like to thank you, Francesco and Francesca, for your hard work and your contribution, the opportunity that you offered us to have our work out there, and also the opportunity you offered to a bigger audience of yours to get to know people like us, from Greece, that how we imagine science fiction and what we write about. This is very important, and we need things like that. We need more efforts like that, and hopefully we will see more in the future. Okay, and then in Greek, ευχαριστούμε για αυτή την παρουσίαση, ήταν καταπληκτικά και η επιστημονική φαντασία πραγματικά μπορεί να προσφέρει πάρα πολλά. Αυτό.
Πάρα πολύ ωραία. Λοιπόν, Francesco και Francesca, ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ για την ευκαιρία. Η αλήθεια είναι ότι όντως είναι σπάνιο να έτσι έχουμε την ευκαιρία να βγαίνουμε προς τα έξω και ελπίζουμε να επαναληφθεί και ελπίζουμε και σε πολλά ακόμα τέτοια βιβλία και τέτοιες πρωτοβουλίες. Υπάρχουν πάρα πολλές γλώσσες στον κόσμο. Ελπίζω να συνεχίσει στην πορεία του βιβλίου. Ευχαριστούμε.
He said good things.
No doubt, no doubt.
So thank you very much for the publication and for hosting us. Και για όσους μας ακούνε, καλό βράδυ και μη σταματάτε να γράφετε. Αυτό. Καληνύχτα. Good night.
Kalita, I know that.
Io penso che anche noi in italiano dobbiamo dire grazie a tutti voi che ci avete seguito stasera dall'Italia, dovunque voi siate, e grazie per essere rimasti con noi fino a tardi. Quindi una romana a Edimburgo e il mio romano di Roma, Francesco.
Yes, I also want to thank everybody, first in English. I first of all want to thank everybody and also the authors that could not be with us tonight, but I would really like to have a presentation in Greek with the Greek community, led by Greek presenters, where we are just the guests. I hope we will do it in another occasion, probably beginning of the next year. And grazie a tutti, è stato veramente un onore, il libro è bellissimo e spero che possiate leggerlo e apprezzarlo tanto quanto abbiamo fatto io e Francesca. And okay, thank you again and keep in touch, keep up the good work you're doing and have a good night. Ciao ciao.
Good night.
Benita.
Buonanotte.
Bye.
Ciao.
Take care, stay safe.